Hi, welcome to BioDome. I'm Jara,
And I'm Cody.
and today we're going to be setting up a deep water culture tank for some hydroponic growth. We're going to be growing basil in here, but you can grow just about anything that you want to. This is a 4x8 tray. You want to talk a little bit more about what's going on with the setup here?
Yeah, so we have a 4x8 tray. This is a little bit overkill for basil, but we're going to be growing a lot of basil, and we want these plants to get really big. So we're kind of using this. It is a bit shallow compared to most deep water cultures, but deep water culture can be set up very easily in a slightly more shallow environment. This can be used for deep water culture or something like a flood and drain method. But instead, we're going to be setting up a deep water culture with a slight air gap to accommodate aeration of the roots, and yeah, it works pretty well.
Great. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll describe what we're doing along the way. All right. So to start, we're going to be putting the pump in. Basically, there's a little spot right over here. Easy spot for the pump to go. The pump is basically put in here in order to circulate the water, which will do one of a couple things. It'll help reduce algae growth if there's going to be any. It will help circulate the water to keep the water at a decent temperature. It will help to disperse the nutrient solution within the water. And then another important thing that it will do is it will help to aerate the water to provide oxygen to the roots within the deep water culture system. You can use other things like air stones.
Yeah, so if you weren't planning on providing air gap to your plants, you'd definitely want to go for an air stone. But for our situation, we really just need the water to move around a little bit. We don't really need the aeration as much, just because the plants will be getting air from the actual air. So instead, we just use a very cheap submersible pump. These can be used for all sorts of stuff, but really something a high flow rate, low power usage, and yeah, and these things work great for that. So perfect. Okay.
All right.
And yeah, so next we have these basically toppers, and what we're going to use these for is we're basically just, there's nothing really the plants are going to sit on, and they might float, but not the best way of doing it. So we have some of these are repurposed, but you can get these custom made. Your plants will need to sit on top of something in a system like this. Some people just choose to get a bigger substrate and just lay them directly on the bottom. That's fine, but we do like our plants kind of resting up a little bit. So getting these custom made, these are cheap, high-density polyethylene. They're mold mildew resistant.
Ooh, this goes.
Yeah, this way.
Start over again. These are polyethylene.
Yeah, high-density polyethylene. This is like food safe, no low lead content. These are thick enough and sturdy enough to hold the weight of the plants, even if we use something large. But they also are not only safe for that, but they will not grow algae and mold like other things, especially wood. A lot of people like to try to use wood and other stuff and say the water won't touch it. But you got to assume everything that you're doing with the plants will come into contact with a large amount of water for a large period of time. And that's very bad if you have something that like wood. And most of all, we don't use anything that's metallic or any cheap plastics because they can break down into the water and hurt the plants or hurt you. So
you definitely don't want microplastics to be in your water. That's why you got to use food safe plastics for sure. If you're doing this for at home purposes, you could use any plastics you want. You just might get some of those BPAs or microplastics into the water, which we definitely cannot do as a business.
But yeah, so definitely look for food safe plastics. If you do want to get something custom made, there's plenty of resources out there. It can be a little bit more expensive, but you can get something very nice and works very well. These are very easy to clean. They hold the plants properly, and we got a custom size for our system.
So these plastic sheets that we have that go over the top of our deep water culture system, they're custom built so that they fit the 3-inch plant cups exactly perfectly as we put them in. Oops. So, but you can really use anything, especially for basil, some of these smaller plants, like herbs and leafy greens. You can use much smaller ones. In one of our other tanks, we use 1-inch plant cups or 1.5-inch plant cups. I think probably the best way to go is a 2-inch plant cup, just because you can very easily fit the basil into, or other herbs and leafy greens into 1.5 by 1.5 by 1.5 inch rock wool cubes. So our next step is going to be to transplant our basil that we started growing in these small rock wool cubes in a grow tray. And those are going to be going into our system for the deep water culture. Make sure when you're doing this at home, if you've let your plants grow to the size that we've grown them, that you are very careful with the roots so as not to damage them. And then the roots have to be long enough and sit down so that they go underneath of your plant cup and hang through.
Yeah, it's important that your roots will be touching water at this point, because if you put them in there, they're not touching water. Your plants can't seem to find water on their own, so it's pretty important that you get it through. We use these little, just something, a toothpick or something, just to basically just pull the plant roots through and have them hang down further, just to help them out a little bit. Especially since you want to keep the air gap, it's important that we have roots actually touching water.
So the final step, now that we have all of our basil plants into our plant cups and set in, I believe we've got 53 basil plants growing in here. These are going to be huge in 2 months, 3 months, something like that. Yeah. And we make sure that they get nice, big, and bushy. And if you're interested in videos on how to prune your plants, such as pruning tomatoes, basil, or parsley, we have videos on those on our YouTube channel. We'll link in the description if you'd like to go watch any of those.
So yeah, we're basically just going to be filling it up. Not all the ways, just enough that the roots are hanging in the water, but there's enough air space for the plants to kind of rest. And we're going to be topping off with a transition mixture, which is just a general three-part nutrient solution. We will link in the description, and we'll also link the chart in the description that we use. But yeah, and for this, we just mix it all together. We put the water in, we put the nutrients in, we make sure it gets all mixed in, and it's ready to go.
All right, add the nutrients. And let's go ahead and fill it up. So as we're doing this, we just want to make sure that when the roots are hanging down and underneath the plants here, we want to make sure that the water is only coming up to about here on the roots. We want to leave maybe a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch of the roots actually hanging out of the water. And we don't want any of the rock wool to be in the water, because the rock wool is going to cause issues. If it stays wet, it could grow algae or other things along those lines. So we just want to make sure that it's staying out of it and allowing it for it to get that air gap so it can get oxygen into the roots. So there you have it. That's how you would go about setting up your very own deep water culture system at home, preferably a heck of a lot smaller than this 4-foot by 8-foot tray. Probably not the best idea. Also, maybe use some larger plants than just basil. We're using this because of the fact that we have it and we have some extra room.
and we have a bunch of extra basil, so that's what's growing now. But yeah, hopefully this helps with your hydroponics at home. I'm Jara.
And I'm Cody.
And we're BioDome. We're here to help with all of your hydroponic and aeroponic needs to help you do your stuff at home. Keep growing.